I don't even know what I can say about the Zelda series at this point. We've gotten so much high quality over the years that it pretty much makes my head explode. The fact that gamers are as engrossed as ever in the series I think speaks volumes about its quality. Seriously though, it's been more than 25 years and gamers still get super excited whenever a new game is going to be released. And while a lot of new games can generate that kind of excitement, how many of them can generate that kind of excitement over such a long period of time? As much as I've primarily been a console gamer over the years and thusly am a huge fan of Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker, we've gotten some amazing portable entries to the series like Link's Awakening and the Minish Cap. But even beyond those two, one of my absolute personal favorites is Oracle of Ages.
Oracle of Ages alongside Oracle of Seasons were developed by Nintendo alongside Flagship, a subsidiary of Capcom, although there's nary a flagship in sight when you start up the game. The Oracle games retain the same look and controls from a certain lovable entry to the series for the Game Boy, Link's Awakening. Yet they brought a ton of new innovations to the table that really distinguished the games in the Zelda universe, while still retaining the same magical feeling we've come to know and love over the years. You wouldn't think it, seeing as they're only Game Boy Color games, but the amount of depth in both Ages and Seasons is absolutely staggering, and to only cover one of the two games, and in such a short a period of time no less, is almost insulting if I'm honest. While I'm more inclined to tell you my thoughts on Seasons, seeing as it's a personal favorite of mine, I want to talk about Ages this time around. That way I'm not too blinded by nostalgia. Speaking of being blinded, look at this introductory cutscene. As Link rides along the beach, the setting sun blazes in the background, the seagulls chirping overhead as his shadow is cast along the sand. Then finally, he rears up on Epona, overlooking Hyrule Castle from afar. How fucking awesome was that? We aren't even truly in the game yet, and I'm ready to kick evil in the face. Or chop it in the face, whatever. Turns out your help is needed in the distant land of Labyrinth, and so the Triforce calls out to you and sends you there in a flash.
Link, we need your help in another world, so we're gonna transport you there. Might be a bit of a bumpy ride though. Sorry. I didn't sign up for this shit!
We land in this foreign region and decide to take a look around, only to hear some screaming down the road. We go to see what all the hubbub is about and see Impa being attacked by some monsters. Fortunately, they decide to listen to reason when Link rolls onto the scene and bounce before they were consigned to a brutal death. That's right, bitches. You don't want to fuck with me. Impa was just trying to find Nehru, the Oracle of Ages, before she was attacked. But now that you're here, she can continue onward knowing you'll protect her. Which, I guess makes sense. The Sheikah who is a sage in Ocarina of Time is entirely helpless now. Okay. After walking a little further, you eventually find the source of some singing that's going on as the sound draws closer to you. This is something about the game that, while not utilized all that often, is awesome. There's dynamism to the sound. When we are a screen away, the music is quieter, but upon walking up to the next screen and getting closer to the action, we realistically hear the sound grow in volume. How many Game Boy Color games did that? I really actually don't know the answer to that question. The sound thing is just kinda cool to me. Anyway, pretty lady is singing. She's got awesome long blue hair and all the cute forest creatures came by to say hello, and wowzers, this atmosphere is kinda nice.
I could stay here forever.
Turns out Impa wasn't helpless though. She was just possessed by our antagonist, Verin. Verin reveals herself and is all, "Look at my sorcery," and Link's like, "Oh fuck," and then she possesses Nehru and destroys the fabric of time. Awesome. Nehru's good friend and caretaker Ralph freaks out and runs off, and Impa is feeling pretty shitty what with the whole being possessed by an evil sorceress deal, so it's up to us to figure out how to solve this mess. Impa gives us a sword and suggests heading into town and talking to the Maku Tree. The Maku Tree is the wise guardian of the land, so this seems like a logical step to me. Luckily, the trip only requires we walk through a cave with absolutely no enemies at all. Oh cool, would you look at that? The Maku Tree is a lady in Ages. She's even got a little flower in her hair. Branches? Whatever. It's cool. That's all that's important. However, we barely get any time to chat it up before Verin goes and messes things up in the past, causing the Maku Tree to disappear. Verin, how dare thee get rid of my beloved Maku Tree, you wench! The only other way forward is to the right, and we appear on the ledge where Verin created a time portal. Ralph apparently made it here before us, and goes charging in without a moment's hesitation. Seems like we might as well follow him. We get a neat little animation with some cool sound effects, and boom, we're several hundred years in the past now. This is the main appeal of the game.
The time travel.
Some dungeons and areas in general aren't accessible unless you're in a certain time period, and you have to continually travel back and forth in time if you want to progress forward in the game. While this can be challenging, in the end it's pretty rewarding when you manage to make your way across a mountain range to your final destination by constantly traveling back and forth through time's currents. Now in the past, the man standing there informs us that the entire world has basically gone to shit since Nehru showed up. Queen Ambi is forcing the people to toil for long spells of the day, building her a giant tower, and the land is looking a little dead. Our first task is to head straight up to the same cave we went through in the present, since we want to help the Maku tree. However, upon getting to the cave, we find that we can't get in as the entrance has been blocked by all these dirt piles. Looks like we've got to find a shovel. So you go to the tower under construction, where you eventually find a guard who gives you a shovel because they need all the help they can get. Nah, I don't care about you guys. Using the shovel, we enter the cave, which serves as Dungeon 0, and it does exactly what you expect from a good Zelda game. It teaches you how to play the game. It does this subtly too. You never feel as if the game is holding your fucking hand and telling you how to progress. This door that's locked? You push the lone block in the room and boom, you know that some doors will open that way. In another room, you slay the enemies and bada bing bada boom, the door opens and you progress further into the cave. This first little mini dungeon, when you really examine it, is set up in a pretty linear path. The game is guiding you along the route it wants you to take whether you want to go that route or not, but it's not readily apparent. Like I said, subtlety. Upon reaching the Mako tree, we find she is just a sprout, much like the Deku tree when you're an adult in Ocarina of Time. You save her from some moblins that were all up in her face, thus allowing her to exist again in the future, and she promises to, marry you? Having saved her, we go back to the present and talk to the Mako tree now that she has been saved thanks to our heroic efforts. While she can't remember much of anything, she hasn't forgotten in the past few hundred years or so that you promised to marry her. That's not how this works. She gives us the task of retrieving the 8 essences of time scattered throughout the land of Labrina so she can regain her memory and help you stop Varen. When combined with all the exposition in the beginning of the game, the player is now completely set up for the rest of the game. We now have a clear goal to work towards and understand all the game's mechanics. Then comes the standard fare of progressing dungeon to dungeon, gaining new weapons and slaying baddies. Now, this is where in a normal review of mine, I'd keep going through the story and sarcastically provide you all my thoughts on little things. But I don't want to do that here. Or rather, doing that with a Zelda game would take ages to cover. You see what I did there? I'm sorry, that was fucking awful. Besides, the entire point of a Zelda game is to fully experience everything it has to offer. We've gone through the beginning of the game. Now it'll be up to you to play the game yourself and see what else it has in store. Now that doesn't mean I can't give you a few more details on why exactly this game is so good. So let's examine just a little bit further. What makes Aegis interesting is its overall focus on puzzles. Between Aegis and its companion, Seasons, Aegis is the more puzzle-oriented game while Seasons is the more combat-focused game. That's not to say that there aren't any puzzles in Seasons or that you don't have to fight enemies in Aegis, but there is a certain feel to each game that distinguishes it from the other. I mentioned it before, but the key feature that makes this game stand out is the time travel mechanic. While the thought of time travel might make you immediately think of Ocarina of Time, it's important to make a distinction between the two games, because Aegis isn't a mere copy. Time travel in Ocarina of Time is centered around the removal of the Master Sword, which sends Link 7 years into the future, turning him into an adult. You're controlled by time in this scenario. In Aegis, however, it's the exact opposite. You control time. Initially, your time travel is limited to portals that have been left open. However, once you come into possession with Nehru's magical instrument, the Harp of Ages, not only can you travel between both periods of time without ever aging, but you can go back and forth wherever you want. At first, you can only travel back and forth from specific locations, but as you learn more songs, you gain enough control to go back and forth from any spot as you please. The mechanic then comes into play as you move around Labrina in search of the essences. Some areas are unreachable unless you're in one time period, and in some other cases you won't be able to get to a certain location unless you constantly go back and forth in time as you move forward. This makes Aegis a really enjoyable game to play as you progress from dungeon to dungeon. The path to each dungeon isn't a straight shot. You have to constantly travel to different areas in both the past and the present if you want to get any further. The game, once again, doesn't hold your hand the entire time either. You'll always get a subtle hint from the Mako tree to go in a general direction, as she can sense where a new essence will awaken, but beyond that, it's entirely up to you to scour every inch of land and pester every NPC to get more hints. This focus on exploration is key to this game being so strong. You want to rampage each dungeon one by one? Go for it. Want to explore and find that elusive heart piece? get her done. For example, let's take a quick look at Ocarina of Time. Upon talking to Zelda, you are tasked with heading up Death Mountain to get the second spiritual stone. And while that's the primary goal for story progression, you aren't forced to go there right away. We're free to explore Hyrule Field and head to other areas if we want, like Lake Hylia or Gerudo Valley. While these areas don't hold much of anything integral for Child Link as far as the story goes, they do provide us with the opportunity to find some extra goodies and meet more colorful characters, and this is exactly what Ages brings to the table. All Zelda games are going to have a path the main story wants you to follow, and in the end we'll always come back to that path and progress forward, but Zelda games are all about the adventure and every aspect that goes along with it, and without being able to roam around and discover new people and places, it wouldn't make for much of a good Zelda game. Gameplay in Ages is extremely solid too. I've already explained how the game teaches you how to play through its design, but even then it really wouldn't take you much effort to get used to the game. The controls are really easy to manage. I mean, what do you know, it's only got 2 buttons, how about that shit? And the movement is a breeze as you maneuver your way across thin pathways and moving platforms. This review just wouldn't be complete if I didn't bring up the music, and Ages has some absolutely fantastic tracks. The music in this game was lovingly composed and really suits every area of the game that you visit. Dungeon themes feel grandiose and set the mood for the struggle that is coming, while the overworld theme is epic and just yells, "Adventure!" Being able to travel between the past and present opens up opportunities for the music to change along with the feel for each time period. While the present remains bright and beautiful with tracks that embody those traits, the past has been somewhat ravaged, and that's also reflected in the mood of each track. For example, the town in the present feels very bright and happy, the people are content, and the town itself is tidy and peaceful. Then you travel to the past and the theme is very similar, yet the pace has been slowed down slightly. The music has a more somber tone, and it perfectly matches the sentiments of the people as they toil away at Ambi's Love Tower. Honestly, it's kind of hard for me to really say too much more without repeating myself. There's just so much to see and do in this game that you'll have hours of fun prying through every nook and cranny of Labyrinth. The story is great, the gameplay is fun, and the overall presentation between the graphics and the music makes for an extremely solid title, and I'd recommend this game along with its companion seasons to anyone looking for some more adventure in their life. And let's be honest, everyone wants some more adventure.
If you want to see a really awesome review of Seasons, go check out my good friend Mike Ironfist. His review is absolutely fantastic and will let you know everything you need to know about the game. You can get Ages and Seasons on the Nintendo eShop for like $6 I think, which is honestly a pretty good deal. If you really want a physical copy, I'm sure you could find these, but it's probably going to be more expensive than that, and honestly, for as good of a game as these are, I don't know if going and dropping like 20 or 30 bucks on one of these is worth it, but up to you. I understand the collecting thing. And, well, and the physical copy too. I'm Wally the Legend, and I won't see you until afterwards, so I'll just say now for all my American friends, Happy Thanksgiving. Make sure you eat a shit ton of turkey. Oh, and gravy, and crescent rolls, and mashed potatoes.